Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series on current affairs. Now today we are going to cover 1 week's current affairs from the topic of international relations. Okay, so IR related current affairs, IR related news items that dominated the news in the past 1 week would be covered in today's lecture. And mind you, we are only going to cover those news items which would be relevant for your UPSC examination. Okay, we won't cover frivolous IR related news items. Okay, only relevant news items would be covered from the past 1 week. Clear? Now, let me tell this to you in advance. Well, we are following a weekly current affairs approach. In one lecture, we cover 1 week's current affairs for a particular subject. Okay? Through this, your current affairs are segregated subject-wise. Plus, in one lecture, in 30 minutes, you get to cover entire week's current affairs. So this is a very healthy lecture series for you. Make it a part of your daily routine. Make it a daily habit of yours and you will cover your current affairs. All current affairs till the next examination precisely, nicely, properly. Okay? Alright then. Without further introduction, let's straight away dive into the lecture. So let's begin. So current affairs IR June part 2. Okay, as you all know, we are covering weekly current affairs and in 1 month, there are 4 weeks. So for the month of June, we are in week number 2. Okay, so that is why it is part 2. Nonetheless, what are the topics that we are going to cover today? So number 1, preparations for 52nd G7 summit. So we'll talk about G7, the organization, this summit which is going to be organized by France. Okay, and India is invited. India and Brazil are also invited in this summit as special invitees. India is not a member of G7, but India is still invited. So what are the important pillars of this summit? We'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about launch of land port management system Vinimay. Now, what are land port management systems? Well, generally international trade happens through seaports. But India shares land border with various countries and some international trade happens through land also. Cross-border trade also happens. It happens through land ports. Now, India has launched an online portal which will aggregate all data from all land ports in India. So this is very important for India's security because borders are sensitive areas. Plus, it would also boost trade. So we'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about India-South Africa technology and Africa strategic partnership. This is India's Africa policy. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about a repeated news item because in the last lecture, we covered that Myanmar's president is in India. So what agreements were signed in this visit? What did the two sides talk about? We'll talk about this as well. So these are the 4 news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one, starting with topic number 1, and that is preparations for the 52nd G7 summit. Now, G7 is a group of 7 countries, as the name suggests, and these are the 7 developed countries. We'll take a look at the map also, which countries are members of G7. Now, since the top developed countries are part of this G7 group is extremely powerful and is consequential also. Whatever decisions are taken by this G7 group matters to the world. Despite the fact that it is just, 7 countries, still their decisions do matter and they shape international policy because these 7 countries are the most powerful ones. Okay, not the most, but quite powerful, developed countries. Now, this time around, G7 summit is being hosted by France in a very specific location. So we will talk about, the G7 summit, what are the key pillars on which the discussions would happen, what has France done different this time. We'll talk about all these things very quickly. Okay. So preparations for 52nd G7 summit. Yeah. So as holder of the rotating G7 presidency for 2026, France is organizing 52nd G7 summit between 15 to 17 June. The venue is Evian-les-Bains. Basically, it is on the southern shore of Lake Geneva. And Lake Geneva lies at the border of France and Switzerland. So for this summit, as you all know, top leaders are going to be here. So security is very important. Since the location is really sensitive, it is almost at the border of Switzerland and France. Therefore, the security agencies of both France and Switzerland are cooperating for this. This was also the highlight of this summit. Okay. Nonetheless, let's talk about the participating countries. So, who are the members of G7? Okay. So, G7 members: France, US, UK, Germany, Italy, Japan, Canada. These are the members of G7. Okay. Earlier, this G7 used to be G8 because Russia was also a member. but after its Crimean invasion in 2014, it was removed and this organization became G7. And they have also invited European Union as well, because most of these countries are from Europe. So this is an extra invitee, though the top 7 countries are the members of G7. But this time around, France has made special outreach to other countries as well. France has said that we are also going to invite to this G7 summit some other powerful, important countries. So they have made a special outreach. They have made a special outreach to India. They have called Prime Minister Modi, Brazil President, South Korea, Kenya, Syria. Okay, so these countries have been invited. There have been a special outreach. Remember, they're not part of G7, yet they have been invited. And through this, France is actually giving a signal. They're saying that, look, in today's world, well, yes, G7 countries are important, but there are some other countries also which are consequential, which are important. And you cannot take any important decision in the international sphere without the support of these countries. In fact, France also wanted to call China, but it was heavily objected to by Japan, USA, even South Korea, USA, but Japan, USA particularly. Therefore, well, and Japan and USA are G7 members, so, well, France had to abandon this approach, but they did call India. Clear? Now, like I said, it is going to be a special summit because this location is sensitive. It lies on Lake Geneva, which is at the border of Switzerland and Geneva. And that is why, well, Swiss troops, including French troops, all are over here for security operations. But this is not that important for us. What is important for us is what are the key policy pillars for this summit? What is going to be decided? First of all, France, by inviting India, Brazil, has shown that even middle powers, not just superpowers, middle powers are also important to engage. That is why they have invited India and Brazil, their outreach strategy. Then next, they have talked about climate finance because they are really serious about climate change. So they have talked about how to finance climate change mitigation and adaptation. Plus, they have also talked about green taxonomy, that we need a proper definition for green projects, because only green projects will get this finance. So we need a proper definition and classification. Otherwise, people would fool us by implementing a normal project saying that it is a green project. That's known as greenwashing. We have discussed this. So this is there. Plus, they are also going to have discussions on AI governance and its impact. AI is a big thing. Now, why this invite to India is significant for India? Why should India think about this strategically? I mean, what are the strategic advantages of this invite? First of all, this invite recognizes the fact that India is the voice of Global South, and Global South means developing countries. So this is there. Plus, it also showcases how strong India-France strategic partnership is. Right? So these are the two strategic wins for India through this invite. Clear? Make sense? That's about it. That's all you need to know. Now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is Land Port Management System, Vinimay. It's called Vinimay, but it's a land port management system. Now, in the beginning of this lecture, I did tell you what land ports are. Land ports handle cross-border trade. They are between India-Nepal border, they are between India-China border as well, they are between India-Pakistan border, the Wagah-Atari border used to be a land port, but now things are not right. India-Bangladesh, India-Myanmar, there are various land ports. Now, because they are in a sensitive location, that is border, well, there are security concerns, there are smuggling concerns as well, okay? There are counterfeit product trade concerns. Plus, there is this overall concern of, well, management, okay, trade facilitation, so that honest traders are not harassed by custom officials. That is why, well, we have launched a single online portal that will integrate all the information across all the land ports of India, all the land ports. Plus, this information shall be shared with BSF, Sashastra Seema Bal, intelligence agencies everywhere. So this would make our land ports management efficient. This is really important for cross-border trade as well as managing India's borders with these enemy and friendly countries. Both are there on our borders, right? So that is why this system was important. So let's talk about the system, okay? So Land Port Management System, Vinimay. So this is the system. It was launched by Union Home Minister. So inaugurated Vinimay, and this Vinimay was developed by Land Port Authority of India. Now, Land Port Authority of India is a statutory body. Statutory body means it was created by a law made by Parliament. Under Department of Border Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Vinimay represents an absolute digital overhaul of India's cross-border logistics. Now, about Land Port Authority of India. So what is Land Port Authority of India? Well, it is a statutory authority established under Land Ports Authority of India Act 2010. So it was made by a law made by Parliament. Then, what is its mandate functions? It operates under MHA. Okay, so it is under MHA, Department of Border Management, to build, manage and upgrade the infrastructure at integrated checkposts between borders across India's international land borders. As of now, their Land Port Authority of India manages 15 operational land ports across borders with Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar. Plus, the government announced 11 more land ports. This would take the total count to 26. So we have many land ports with different countries. Now, what is so special about Vinimay? Let's talk about Vinimay platform. So Vinimay is engineered as a neutral, open, single-window electronic platform that coordinates all border operations, all land ports, everything onto one single platform. Okay. What are its functions? What are its key pillars? So these are the three key pillars. Interagency real-time data sharing. Data sharing with all the security agencies, customs agencies everywhere. Okay. Then end-to-end digital workflow. From import to export, the entire life cycle of a product that is being imported or exported, the entire life cycle would be digitized for efficiency. Plus cross-platform interoperability. Vinimay is linked directly with India's core national digital backbones. India has other platforms also, and Vinimay would be linked with that. For example, India has IceGate. IceGate is a digital platform used by custom officials. Okay. Then ULIP. This is for logistics, Unified Logistics Interface Platform. Then Vahan Sarthi system. Vahan Sarthi is for road transport. This digital portal. Vinimay would be integrated with all these digital portals also. So this is the third pillar. Clear? Now, what are the benefits of this? So there are basically two benefits. Number one, it would boost trade. And number two, it would also help in border security. Because a lot of fishy things also happen through these land ports across the border. Okay, so these are the two aims. First, let's talk about trade facilitation. So first of all, since everything is online, so paperwork elimination. Over 90% of manual paperwork at land borders has been completely phased out. Then dwell time compression. Truck waiting times at heavy traffic nodes have dropped by 40 to 60%. Okay, trucks traveling across the border. Gate processing optimization, the gate which allows you to enter India. Automated scanning and check-ins have cut gate transit times by 35%. And trade volume expansion. Government data released at the launch confirms that trade routed through land ports has jumped from 5,000 crore to 83,000 crore. So land cross-border trade is also happening through land. 83,000 crore of our international trade happens through these land borders. So we do need an efficient, proper system. This will help in that. But more importantly, and this is more important for the government, it will help in border security. By routing all border transit through a unified digital tracking loop, Vinimay helps turn informal border crossing points into monitored zone. It will help customs and BSF and other agencies to keep a track of things. Shadow economy, illegal trade would be controlled, mitigating border district migration. Now with this online portal, everything going online, trade would get boosted at these border areas. This would create more jobs. This would reduce migration from these border districts. Border areas would get developed. And because they'll get developed, they won't have any separatist tendencies. They would want to integrate with India. Okay, so these are some of the things. By the way, there are some challenges. First of all, the biggest challenge is security. Since many of these border areas have insurgencies, especially along the Myanmar border. This is a big thing. Plus, many of these land ports, okay, which are being digitized, they lack basic facilities. Some of these land ports. So that needs to be rectified. These are the only challenges. Otherwise, it's a win-win situation. Okay. And now let's move on to third news item, and that is India-South Africa Technology and Africa Strategy Partnership. Now you see, India's foreign policy has made a strategic pivot towards Africa. Okay, we want to engage with Africa, and we think that Africa is the next big thing in the 21st century. So India is engaging like wholeheartedly with Africa. We are revamping our Africa strategy. Now, one such country in this African continent is South Africa. Now, 30 years ago, South Africa and India signed a science cooperation agreement, science cooperation partnership. Now, that science cooperation partnership was only a partnership for basic research. But now India and South Africa both have decided to upgrade this partnership to applied research, co-production of high-tech products. Earlier it was just research. Now we will co-produce high-tech products. Okay? And along with this, well, we'll also talk about other things that India is doing to come closer to Africa. Okay? Africa as a whole. So let's talk about this. Okay? So India, South Africa Technology, Africa Strategy Partnership. So we have upgraded the 31-year-old bilateral science and technology partnership has been upgraded. We are moving away from traditional theoretical academic research to innovation-driven industrial co-production, commercial startups, and global South supply chain integration. Okay, so what all is there? What are the core pillars of this technology partnership? The updated framework targets key emerging industries. Okay, now we are targeting emerging industries. We are not just focusing on basic research in physics, chemistry, maths. No, we are targeting emerging areas and co-production, co-development. Digital public infrastructure, like India has AgriStack and many other things, UPI. Well, India will help South Africa with that. Deep space and astronomy, biotechnology and advanced healthcare, plus green manufacturing. In these 4 areas, we will cooperate, innovate, create startups together, and will produce products together. Okay. Then we are also engaging. You know why South Africa is important for India? It is important for India from the perspective of critical minerals. Now, we have had ample discussions on critical minerals, so I won't explain what critical minerals are. But you just need to know that we need the supply of critical minerals. And currently, China has near monopoly over the supply of critical minerals. So we need to secure these critical minerals from elsewhere. Turns out, South Africa has good supply of critical minerals. That is why we also want to engage with South Africa. Okay. A major subtext of technology partnership is securing raw inputs needed to power green energy transition. Now, these critical minerals are used in green technologies like electric vehicles, solar power, everywhere. So we'll have a sourcing deal. We'll source these critical minerals from mines in Africa. Now, the supply of these critical minerals would also protect us from external shocks because we'll be able to manufacture our own things. We'll be more self-reliant. We won't be dependent on supplies from Strait of Hormuz. We'll have our own supplies. Plus, by getting all of this from South Africa, we'll also give something in return to South Africa. So we are helping them technologically and financially to basically do their own mining. Okay, that is there. Mineral processing, mining processing, all that. Now, this is all we need to know as far as Africa is concerned. Now let's talk about South Africa is concerned. Africa strategy. The entire continent. Okay. Earlier we used to engage with the countries of Africa by providing them with credit. Now we are integrating our economy with their economy. Earlier we just used to provide them, we just provided them with credit. Now we are having joint projects, companies are having joint ventures. We are integrating our economy with theirs. This is a good development. Plus, we are leveraging our engagement with Africa Free Trade Association. The entire African continent has created a free trade association. So we are engaging with that. Plus, Africa needs countries like China or India to be their development partners. Now, China definitely has money power, but India also offers money, development, plus India is democratic and transparent. Unlike China, which develops you by providing you with high interest rate loans and then traps you in these debt traps. India won't do that. India is a democracy and a transparent development partner. So India is offering a better alternative for Africa. So this is there. Though yes, there are some challenges, okay? Those challenges are given in your notes, very easy to understand. So just take a look. And now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is visit of Myanmar president to India. Now, we did discuss this news item in our previous current affairs lecture. If you haven't checked this, go check that out. Now, I told you why this visit from Myanmar president is important. It's important to show that India is really flexible with its foreign policy. Earlier, India refused to engage with Myanmar's leadership by taking a principled stand, saying that there is no democracy in Myanmar, there is military dictatorship, we won't engage with military dictators. But now India has realized that if we don't engage with military dictators, well, these are the ones who are in power in Myanmar. We would lose Myanmar. And we have some serious security concerns which can be solved cooperatively with Myanmar. So we have decided to be flexible. We have started engaging with Myanmar. But along with this engagement, well, this engagement happened because Myanmar's president was in India. Along with this engagement, we have signed various agreements. So in this news item, we will talk about those agreements. We'll also talk about the strategic interests between India and Myanmar. Okay, so let's talk about this. So what is the significance of this visit? This visit marks the first state visit by Myanmar's leaders to India, India's realistic stance. Remember I told you? Amid criticism from international human rights bodies and domestic opposition groups regarding political transitions, India's foreign line stated New Delhi's engagement is not intended to be commentary on internal political engagements. Earlier, India said that we would like to engage with a democratic leader. Now, India has decided that whatever happens inside Myanmar is none of India's concern. That is their internal politics. That is something that is pragmatic and realistic. Here, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri also highlighted this, that it is none of our business. Okay, we will engage with whoever is in charge. And we are doing so with Afghanistan also. We never supported Taliban, but now we have started engaging with Taliban also because they are in charge of Afghanistan. This shows India's realistic and pragmatic stance. Now let's come back to Myanmar. Okay, so why is Myanmar important? Because it is Myanmar where three of India's foreign policy initiatives combine: Neighborhood First Policy, Act East Policy, and Mahasagar Doctrine, mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across regions, especially in Bay of Bengal region. Okay, so these are the three foreign policy doctrines that India follows, and Myanmar is part of every single one of them. So through Myanmar, we are actually helping three foreign policy initiatives. This is a good thing. Okay, plus we have various engagements with Myanmar. Okay, first of all, we have created strategic corridors, trade corridors, Kaladan Multimodal Transit Project, India, Myanmar, Thailand Trilateral Highway. Plus, you all know, you should know this, that Myanmar is suffering from American sanctions. It cannot do international trade in dollars. So, India and Myanmar have basically signed an agreement in which they will do trade in their local currency. Okay, rupee and kyat. Myanmar's currency is kyat. So, this is local agreement. Then there was this agreement on energy cooperation. Then territorial guarantees, both countries would cooperate to fight separatist groups in each other's territories, transnational cybercrime, sovereignty protection. So these were some of the strategic pillars. Plus, there is one more angle. You should know this. There is one more very important angle, and this is how India is using its soft power to attract Myanmar. You know, Myanmar is majority Buddhist country. And which is the birthplace of Buddhism? India. There are so many places which, well, are visited by Buddhist pilgrims across the world. So India is using that Buddhism to attract Myanmar. This is known as India's Buddhism diplomacy. Okay. This is our Bodh Gaya Accord. So we are using our socio-cultural soft power, Buddhist conduit, civilizational soft power, to have high-level business integrations, to have priority investment sector meetings. So we are combining our soft power with commercial power. This is what we are doing. These two infographics will be shared in your notes. Do study them properly. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I hope it added value to your preparation. In fact, I'm sure that it added value to your preparation. All you have to do is that you have to be regular and consistent with this lecture series. Because if you'll do that, well, more value would come your way. Because not only you'll cover all current affairs, you'll cover all current affairs subject-wise. And we all know covering current affairs subject-wise helps you integrate them with your static portion as well. This is really important. So be consistent and regular with this lecture series, and do not forget to revise this lecture from the notes provided by us. These notes are shared on our Telegram channel, and the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below. So download those notes and revise these notes of this lecture. So yeah, on that note, I shall take your leave with the promise of seeing you again with another lecture in our current affairs lecture series. Thank you, everyone.